We all start with a foundational truth, right? Teachers are, without a doubt, the most influential factor in student learning.
Absolutely. It's the one constant in all the research.
So if we accept that, then the path to strengthening our whole education system has to run directly through strengthening teaching. But here's the real question. Where should that focus be?
And that's the critical tension.
Right.
Because, as Dr. Jeff Taylor points out in his work, the prevailing habit, our default mode for teacher reflection, is almost always inwardly directed.
Inwardly directed.
Meaning, it's all about what did I do in my lesson yesterday?
Exactly. It's this idea that the only variable you can truly control, and therefore the only one you should reflect on, is yourself.
And okay, on the surface, that sounds responsible. Of course we need to self-correct. But Taylor makes this pretty bold argument that this focus can actually be damaging. How can self-reflection possibly be a bad thing? Because when teachers are constantly looking only inward for solutions or, for blame, they start to dangerously underestimate the systemic constraints, all those invisible challenges that are imposed by their school environment.
So they internalize failures that aren't really, or at least not entirely, their own.
Precisely. Taylor points out that in these highly performative educational settings, he references the Australian context specifically, this kind of overly internalized focus can just erode a teacher's sense of self-worth, their purpose, their whole professional identity.
It sounds like a deficit model where the teacher is always the one who needs fixing while ignoring a context that might be actively draining them.
It's a pathway straight to burnout. And if we want teachers to be those sophisticated, critical, reflective practitioners we need them to be, well, we need a paradigm shift.
We need a more balanced approach.
Exactly. Reflection still has to happen, of course, but it has to integrate a healthy, necessary focus on all those external influences that fundamentally affect what you can do in a classroom. This isn't just about feeling better, it's about understanding reality.
And that is precisely our mission for this deep dive. We're going to explore the 3 crucial phenomena that Dr. Taylor says teachers have to reflect on regularly to get that balance. It's like we're mapping the ecosystem of resilience.
And these 3 factors, they form the foundation of what he calls teacher core effectiveness.
Which is what exactly?
It's that professional state where teachers feel empowered to make their own decisions, to regulate their practices based on their own moral judgment, and to do it in their own professional way.
Okay, so what are the 3 elements?
Contextual well-being, collective efficacy, and finally, self-complexity. And we have to start with the largest external layer, the container for everything else, the environment itself.
The macro level, so contextual well-being. This isn't just about having, free coffee in the staff room, is it?
Not at all. Contextual well-being refers to the quality of the school experience, specifically the psychosocial environment, for the teachers working there.
For the teachers, I saw a note in the source material that kind of jumped out at me. It says this is connected to the student experience, but not always aligned.
Yes.
How can that be? How can teachers be thriving if the students aren't? Or vice versa?
Yeah, it absolutely can happen.
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the complexity of this system.
Yeah.
See, contextual well-being for staff goes way beyond just having an effective principal. It's the palpable climate, the morale.
The feeling in the building.
It's the feeling, yes.
Yeah.
It's the extent to which teachers feel socially and emotionally safe, supported, and this is critical, have a sense of autonomy and agency over what they do.
Agency.
If the environment is punitive or purely managerial, that sense of well-being is going to be low, even if the building is brand new and beautiful.
So a teacher's health isn't just some individual personality trait. It's not something they can just meditate their way out of. It's inseparable from their context.
That's the core argument. And when the context is positive, the data is just. It's crystal clear. Teachers report higher job satisfaction, way lower stress, and much less desire to leave the profession.
Less burnout.
Way less burnout.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, they're better able to build those strong, meaningful parent-school bonds, which we know is vital for student outcomes. Contextual health is the precondition for everything else.
We have to bring in Helen Street here. Her work on this is just so inspirational. She talks about contextual well-being in terms of everyone in the school community being able to flourish. I love that word.
Flourish, yes. She's so powerful because she contrasts it with that constant deficit-focused self-reflection we started with. For her, maximizing well-being is about developing human capability and taking collective responsibility for the climate.
So instead of a teacher saying, I feel so stressed, I need to fix my own work-life balance, the school should be asking, why is our collective environment producing this stress, and how do we fix the system?
Precisely. And Street has this great caution against turning well-being into just another risk-averse strategy. She notes that sometimes focusing too much on mental health promotion can accidentally, well, it can over-pathologize vulnerable students.
Making their difficulties seem like individual faults.
Instead of symptoms of a systemic issue, it's about building a positive climate through collective effort, focusing on strengths, not just deficits.
You know, that shift from the individual burden to collective responsibility, that's the perfect bridge to our next phenomenon. If contextual well-being is the soil, the next layer is what grows in it.
The team dynamic.
Right, the strength of the unit.
Yes. Now we move into collective efficacy. And, simply put, it's the shared belief among educators that by pooling their capabilities, they can have a much greater positive impact than if they just work in isolation.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
That's the idea.
But that sounds simple, but I imagine it's incredibly hard to actually do. I mean, if you have 50 great dedicated teachers, doesn't that automatically give you high collective efficacy?
Not at all. That's a huge misconception. You can have 50 amazing individuals, but if they all work behind closed doors, if they're unwilling to share failures, if they don't trust each other,
Then their collective impact is low.
very low. It requires intentional alignment. But when it's high, it's like a powerful shield. It encourages teachers to tackle challenges together, and it buffers individuals from stress because the load is shared.
So if I have a really difficult situation with a student, I don't feel like I have to go solve it all alone in my room and maybe fail silently.
That's it, exactly. You trust your team enough to bring the problem to them. And that interaction alone, it raises individual self-efficacy, it leads to happier and more productive interactions, and it dramatically improves problem solving.
And it builds trust, which lets people be more open about evaluating their own impact on students.
Which means they're ready to change their practice when they need to.
Mm.
But we have to emphasize that hierarchy again. Collective efficacy grows out of contextual well-being. You need the fertile ground first.
You can't just pressure people into collaboration if the environment is hostile.
You can't. And Carrie Elliott, who's a leading voice on this, she notes how complex and difficult it is to sustain, especially in schools with high staff turnover.
You lose it fast.
You build it slowly, you lose it fast. To make it more manageable, though, Elliott provides this brilliant three-part framework for collaboration. It shows you need more than just good intentions.
You need a full stack.
Right. The first part is the mindset, the core belief, the attitude, the collective will to actually collaborate. You have to truly believe you're better together.
Okay, mindset. And the second is the skill set.
The skill set.
Yeah.
This is your social sensitivity. It's things like effective turn-taking in meetings, knowing how to give feedback that's actually constructive, and truly actively listening. Collaboration is a skill you have to develop.
It's not a given.
Not at all. And finally, the tool set. This is where so many schools fall down because they think mindset and skill set are enough. The tool set is the actual structures, the mechanisms, the protocols and resources that enable collaboration.
Can you give us a practical example of a tool set? Is it just a shared Google Drive or something?
Oh, it's much more structured. A tool set could be a mandated weekly 90-minute block where staff are contractually free from all other duties, specifically to collaborate on curriculum or solve problems.
So protected time.
Protected time. Or it could be an agreed-upon protocol for how meetings are run. 30 minutes for announcements, 60 for genuine, structured, collaborative work. Without that tool set, the mindset and skill set just fall apart under the daily pressures.
Okay, that clarifies the external structure. We have contextual well-being as the environment, collective efficacy as the team strength. Now we get to the internal result of all this.
Yeah.
A concept that feels like it's the most overlooked in education. Self-complexity.
This is the individual safety net. Self-complexity is a positive state of being. It refers to the richness and diversity of a person's self-concept.
So all the different roles you play in your life.
Exactly. It's that reservoir of identity that includes practitioner, mentor, but also community volunteer, family member, friend, citizen. All of it.
It's the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But for your sense of self, it's like a psychological surge protector.
That is a perfect analogy. An individual with well-developed self-complexity can buffer that professional stress because they can effectively compartmentalize the negative impacts.
Meaning a setback in one role, a terrible parent-teacher interview, doesn't spill over and contaminate everything else.
Right. It prevents that dangerous slide into a global negative self-appraisal, that feeling of, I'm a failure as a teacher, so I'm a failure at life.
So the goal isn't to pretend the bad day didn't happen, it's to contain it, to realize it doesn't define the other parts of you or your entire identity.
Precisely. And that compartmentalization leads to greater emotional stability. The danger is so clear. If the demands of teaching start to dominate a teacher's sense of self, their sense of value,
If the school is their only source of identity validation.
well-being just plummets. It makes them incredibly susceptible to stress and ultimately attrition.
So work-life balance isn't a luxury. It's a non-negotiable professional necessity for maintaining this complexity.
It truly is. This self-complexity provides an insulating self-preservation effect. It gives teachers the deep psychological resources they need to manage classroom stress, navigate difficult relationships, and just sustain their motivation long-term.
And it's helpful to know this isn't some new age concept. This is backed by decades of research.
Oh, yeah. The seminal work came from the psychologist Patricia Linville with her social cognitive model.
And it's been applied directly to education. I think Ian Hay in Australia looked at it with adolescents who have high emotional needs.
That's right. And even outside of K-12, you see people like Jessica Carson talking about the need for a multifaceted identity in creative professional work. But the connection is key. The ability to build your own self-complexity grows out of self-efficacy,
Which is boosted by collective efficacy.
which is only possible in a healthy school context. It all links together.
Okay, we've hit all three layers. We have to step back and visualize this as a whole system now, because these aren't isolated ideas.
Right. If you imagine the concentric circles model Taylor talks about, contextual well-being is the big, encompassing outer layer, the atmosphere.
Then collective efficacy is the middle layer, the team dynamics.
And self-complexity is the inner core, the individual's psychological resilience.
So what does this all mean for a teacher listening right now? What's the practical payoff of understanding this layered approach?
The payoff is sustained career health. The school's strong contextual well-being provides the stable, fertile environment for collective efficacy to actually flourish.
Right, the healthy team.
And when that middle layer of team strength is high, the cognitive load and the stress on individual teachers are significantly reduced. And that reduction in strain is the critical factor. It allows the individual teacher to naturally catalyze and amplify their own self-efficacy and successfully build that inner core self-complexity
It's the only reliable pathway to a sustained professional identity.
and integrity.
Yes. And that integrity brings us right back to Dr. Taylor's final point about professional practice. If you have that internal strength, then you're free to be the kind of teacher he envisions.
The creative designer of curriculum.
Focused on human-centered values, modeling those humanizing dispositions, not just delivering standardized content.
And he's a fierce proponent of using subjects like the humanities and social sciences as the training grounds for this, for building personal and social capabilities, ethical understandings, critical and creative thinking, not just for the students, but for the teachers themselves.
So reflection is still paramount.
Always.
But true strengthening demands that reflection looks outward at the ecosystem before it looks inward at the self. It's about being strategic. We can't fix a systemic problem with isolated individual reflection.
Which brings us to our final provocation for you, the listener. We've talked about the increasing demands of the profession, and the source material specifically mentions the rise of AI, of humanoid robotics, which only intensifies the need for teachers to model these humanizing dispositions.
If the rote work of teaching starts to fade and the human work intensifies,
And if contextual well-being, collective efficacy, and self-complexity are the foundations of resilience in this new landscape, we ask you this. Which of those three structural factors will be the most essential safeguard for teachers as their roles shift, maybe irrevocably, from content delivery to modeling the human skills that AI simply cannot replicate?
that's something for you to mull over on your own.